So, I've got a feeling, right, that Redshift LE, kind of like Battle on the Boardwalks just a couple of seasons ago, is gonna be one of those new maps that I will absolutely love casting games on, but also one of those maps that I'll probably not play a whole lot on myself, just because in the dozen or so games that I've played on it so far, it gets so very chaotic. We'll talk a little bit more about the map in just a little bit, but let's get started by introducing the players. Spawning here in the bottom left-hand corner of Redshift LE, and coincidentally also playing with the red Zerg drones, we have none other than Dark. And his opponent spawning all the way in the top left-hand corner. He's playing with the blue Zerg drones. I actually recently uploaded a video of him facing off against Neep. Of course, that means that once again, we are talking about the current world champion of StarCraft, and he goes by the name of Rogue. Now, if you're interested in that game that I covered of Rogue versus Neep, I'll post a link to it down below in the description of this video. Anyway, let's go ahead and have a quick little look at this map in case you haven't played in the new ladder season of StarCraft 2 just yet. So, you've got some pretty easy to take expansions horizontally from your main base on both sides of the map. However, what makes this map very interesting is that leading down from your main base, you've got two ramps. One leading to one of the horizontal bases and one leading towards the base where you're technically expanding towards your opponent. However, of course, you get those juicy golden minerals that bring quite a lot of resources to the Zerg economy very early on. And it does look like both players will actually go for the gold first. Now, in the games that I've seen so far, it gets so very chaotic, so very fast. I'm personally one of the players that usually really enjoys playing that more standard macro-focused playstyle, just because, you know, that's just kind of the way that I prefer playing. And since I don't really play in tournaments, I can veto whatever map I don't really like as much. But obviously, these players don't really have that luxury. Now, here's a nice little subtle difference that the map creator made to this map, and I actually think it's really cool. Look at the mineral patches on the left-hand side. On both sides, you will see that the minerals on the left-hand side are significantly larger than the ones on the right. The ones on the left have 1,800 minerals each, and the ones on the right only 900. Meaning that roughly 8 or so minutes into the game, kind of depending on how many workers are mining there, you will actually run low on resources, and then all of a sudden the game becomes a lot more about chess and positional play, because once these mineral patches run out, all of a sudden you can access the middle part of this watchtower and the middle part of this map very easily. Plus, on top of that, you can harass your opponent's base super easily as well. If you manage to push them out of the, for example, third base, and at the same time hit them at the gold, you can not only kill a whole lot of drones here as well, but you can also potentially push up into the main base. There's all kinds of really interesting strategic play, and I'm really curious to see how this is gonna work out at this level of Zerg versus Zerg. So here's a little bit about Rogue and Dark. They are both phenomenal players. In case you were unfamiliar with them, they are absolutely incredible, and usually their Ling Bane micro is gonna be on point. We see Bailing Nest now coming up here for both players, and actually what you can do on this map as well is, for example, tackle a couple of Banelings right over here and then manually detonate them, and because of the splash damage that they deal, you can actually blow up a mineral line by being on the other side of the mineral line. And by the way, there look to be a couple of gaps in there. Those are actually full walls. So no units can actually go past that until the mineral line runs low. Anyway, apparently Rogue has decided to send a whole bunch of Zerglings across the map. I just realized, by the way, he's in Clan Rogue 1. Nice little meme right there by our player in blue, but he's gonna have to go up against Banelings. Dark already did make a couple of those in advance. Now he's forcing a few Zerglings out of the opposing player here as well. Just simply zoning right now though, using most of the queens for damage here and using the Banes for just simply zoning away here. One drone, I think is, yeah, the one drone there did end up dying. But all things considered, that is most definitely an acceptable loss. Now here we go. Oh, look at that. Oh, a couple of Banelings split them off from the rest. Oh, no way. Oh, no way. Oh, it's so cheeky. Look at that. It's 5 drones that ended up going down there. Now, Dark actually was already droning up very, very greedily. So he's actually not in a bad spot here whatsoever. But the amount of harassment that you can do on this map is absolutely insane. I've actually, Drone Rush mentioned this yesterday over at the live stream. I've actually seen people go for spine crawler rushes on this map. So what you can do, right, as soon as you realize that your opponent is going for a gold first, is make like a hatchery over here outside of their overlord vision, cancel it. You get a 3x3 square of creep and then quickly put a spine up, and then once this base finishes, you can actually put a spine right behind that mineral line. And actually, speaking of devil, both players are deciding right now to go for that spine crawler. Rogue decided to run a drone over here, and a couple more Banes are actually now coming up as well. And once again, trying to deal some of that splash damage. 2 workers there for their troubles that time around, and I do think that this queen will be able to get rid of those units as well. At the same time, though, the Zerglings are moving forward, but already, this is everything but your standard match of Zerg versus Zerg. But what you can do basically, right, is make a hat trick, cancel it, so you get left a little bit, or you're left with a little bit of creep. Then make the spine crawler on that bit of creep, and while initially it will run low on resources, or I guess low on HP, you can actually just uproot it as soon as the creep appears on this side and actually harass your opponent's mineral line before the queen comes out. It gets so funny, so very interesting. Anyway, both players have been spending a lot of time here already, just simply building up that economy. Dark is now sitting on that lair tech. He's actually now starting up the spire here as well. A little bit of a deviation as far as the strategies go. Apparently, he decided, by the way, to put the roaches, or the roach warren rather, as well as the evolution chamber over there at the natural. Not entirely sure if I like this position on this whatsoever, because that is a little bit vulnerable, but at the same time, though, Rogue does, now also transition towards his own roach-based play. Now, he doesn't know about the spire. It is actually really important that he figures that out here in just a little bit. And speaking of the devil, actually, look at that. My god, Rogue. You're so freaking good. This is why Rogue became the world champion. Little moves like this. He just sent, he almost sent it right on top of it, right? And he sees the spire at the sacrifice there of one overseer. Definitely worth it, because it immediately triggered the Hydralisk den there, as well as just more and more roaches. He may very well go for a push. Now, Zerglings are waiting right now to potentially get a kill on this 4th base, and both players really giving each other a lot of respect. But look at this. This is so interesting, right? So, it looked like there for a second that Rogue was gonna make a move towards this area. How are you gonna defend that with just roaches? I guess that's where the mutas come in, right? Yeah, a couple of mutas are now being queued up. Still more and more roaches coming out as well, so definitely not an all-out muta-based play. Rogue, now that his Glory Constitution is done, is gonna make a bit of a move for it. He will likely be able to pick up a couple of worker kills here, but this is so weird, right? This is like both players fighting with like a wall in between. Now, I guess eventually, right, the, oh, nice little bit of micro there, actually. But eventually, the mutas should be able to shoot them back. But there's no denying that this is already a very strange game of Zerg versus Zerg. Now, the Spore Crawler is a little bit late. Second Queen now helping out as well, though. Zerglings in the meantime going to town on that 4th base of Dark. But so far, it looks like both players really giving each other a lot of respect. Not really pushing too aggressively. I almost feel like Rogue could have actually pushed with the amount of units that he had there. But Dark is using those mutas just to buy a little bit of time, and while Pneumatized Carapace was researched on these overlords, it looks like some may still very well find a grave over here. Now, a couple of roaches harassing the... Oh my god, this is like a bunch of dogs barking at each other while they're both caged up, you know? Like, you've seen these movies, right? You've seen those videos that dogs are just simply barking at each other, and as soon as you open the little door, all of a sudden they're super nice to each other. Anyways, while apparently some damage was dealt, now the mineral patches are running out, and Rogue will be able to... Oh my god, this is so weird. This is so strange. Now all of a sudden, these bases are in trouble, and actually, oh, no, he's trying to transfer drones towards that 4th base, but apparently the shortest route to get there is by going behind the mineral line. That's a lesson learned the hard way. Couple of Banelings there waiting for the imminent threat of the Zergling run by once again, and at the same time, apparently the mutas are still going to town. At the same time, the roaches are now making a move towards this base here as well. Now the lurker switch is coming up here for Rogue. Obviously that's going to make defending here significantly easier. So far though, I gotta say, I really do like the position that Dark is in. He did end up losing a couple of his workers, but he's also got full map control now, still with those mutas. Love the way that at this level of play, you see players make a handful of mutas just for harassment purposes, and then, you know, you just simply transition back to watch roaches. It does mean though that Rogue has got the superior amount of tech, but here come the Banelings. Centrifugal hooks is done. Banelings actually blowing up a lot of those roaches as well as a few of those lurkers. Couple of those still in the back, also dealing some of that damage too. And while Dark did force the burrow there at the 3rd base of a Rogue, Yeah, he's going to be able to pick up that 4th with relative ease. At the same time, though, Roaches and Ravagers now making a move towards this golden base here, too. They're going to be able to pick up a few of those units relatively easily. A single Lurker coming up with the harassment here as well by Rogue. These players are hitting at angles that, you know, the amount of micro required here to do this is it's insane. A little bit of overextension there by Dark. He is going to back off. Obviously, Lurkers are very good against armored units in particular. But while Dark does have the option to now push into that main base as well, now that he's picked up the gold after killing the Lurker, he doesn't really have his own Lurker tech up and running just yet. He might be going for that in just a little bit, because once again we see a lot of those, oh man, perfect micro there, but a lot of those Ravagers coming up. So this is gonna get really messy really fast. 13 drones ended up going down there, and I love the position that Dark is finding himself in right now. I mean, he's maxed out, he's got 4 bases up and running, and while he is forced to split up a lot of his army, he's now successfully contained his opponent on what is effectively 2 bases, right? And these bases are running really low. I mean, it's just more like a 1 base at this point. I mean, this base will run low very, very quickly as well. But how are you going to split this up if you're Rogue? Rogue did leave a couple of Lurkers on the high ground as well as a few Roaches. I really like that. Dark can't see that one, just barely there, using the Overseer's new vision, of course, that they got about a half year or so ago at this point. Still, Lurkers are great at this defensive style. Muta's still picking up a couple of those units from time to time as well. They're now part, apparently, of this main force that is moving across. But I do think it would be smart for Dark to just simply transition towards his own, maybe even Hive Tech, but likely Lurkers at this point, too, just because, you know, he's likely not going to break this. And actually, we do see that Hydralisk Den now coming up. Roaches on the right-hand side apparently sneaking by. This is unscouted by both players. I mean, neither player really seems to be aware of the fact where that army is located. Still, the Muta's picking up a couple of units at a time. And this actually could be a nice little push here. Rogue is indeed moving across the map, using the Lurkers now for defense. He's likely going to be able to keep this base alive here for the time being as well, depending on where the Lurkers are coming from. Lurkers now unburrowing, once again moving forward. Roaches in the bottom right-hand corner have now arrived. They're going to try and see if they can pick off that 5th base as well. At the same time, the Roach Ravager Bolt trying to move up that ramp in the main base here of the Zerg player in blue, but Rogue manages to hold on. A couple of the Roaches now also trying to see if they can deal some damage here at the 4th base of Dark, but apparently they will be deflected almost immediately. Really still like the position that Dark is in, but there's no denying that Rogue just got himself another base, right? Leapfrogging a lot of those Lurkers forward, he's putting them in more powerful positions to the point where... Yeah, the one in the bottom right-hand corner, by the way, got killed there. But he's moving the Lurkers into really powerful position to the point where they can actually defend sort of like this low ground area as well as the 4th base at the same time. Gold now completely gone, though. We do still see some of those mineral patches being mined here by Dark. And that's kind of the thing. You get this burst in economy in the early game, but then, you know, they run out really quickly as well. So exactly how valuable is it? Exactly how good is it to go for that gold base first? I'm not entirely sure. This is definitely one of those maps as well that will change a lot over time. I've got a feeling that the way that people play on Redshift right now is going to be very different in, you know, than in just a couple of months from now. But I gotta say, it's really cool to see strategies develop, because this is definitely the longest running game that I've seen on this map so far, and it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Both players definitely very well matched. Rogue now sending once again one Roach over towards the base. He's just trying to send 1 or 2 units across, like we saw with that Lurker earlier, just to pick up a couple of drones here and there. Speaking of drone kills, yeah, look at that. Over 50 workers have gone down so far at this point in the game. Now, Dark still has full map control though, right? We see Rogue really being forced into this super defensive position, putting the Lurkers up on the high ground. I really do like this as well. I do think it is the smart way to play. At the same time, though, Dark once again splitting off his forces. And Tunneling Claws just finished up for Rogue. Tunneling Claws has a lot of potential. Usually not something we see after Lurkers are already out, but they are now moving across the map in a very big chunk. And while a lot of the Roaches and Ravagers are moving up to the ramp, at the same time, Dark has got a bunch of his army still sitting at the low ground there near the golden base. Instead, I actually really like this. He's sort of setting himself up with a concave into the main base of his opponent instead. That's super cute. How are you going to push up this ramp? Super well done. Sort of reinforcing and grouping up his units once again, even though they came from completely different angles. angles, and that means that the Roach Warren ends up dying. At the same time, though, the Roaches managed to move across the map. Fourth base of the Zerg player in red was picked off in just a couple of seconds. Muta's still going to town here in the top right-hand corner as well. Lurkers brave enough to once again uproot themselves and head into the main base, but Dark definitely did a huge amount of damage. Still, Rogue is not done just yet, though. He's got a lot of Roaches still inside of that, I guess, third base right now of Dark. A few of them were also split off to go after the base here in the bottom right-hand corner, and while Dark now finally gets his own Lurkers out, actually, I don't mind this situation that Rogue is in. I mean, he was in a really bad spot earlier, playing 2 to 4 bases, but he's actually crawled himself back into the game. I thought that push into the main base was gonna go heavily in favor of Dark, just because of the fact that he managed to control that. But with the Lurker slipping up towards the high ground, Rogue actually manages to keep that base alive for a little while longer. Apparently, though, Dark is not done with the aggression just yet. Lurkers now fighting Lurkers. A lot of overseers are coming up just to try and get a little bit more vision. There we go. Surveillance mode once again being activated. So they're going to be able to get just a little bit more range on the majority of this. But the main base is now actually in trouble. Once again, this Lurker versus Lurker-based army is so tricky. Few more Roaches, though, apparently were stepped on by the opposing Roaches as well, but they had no clue that apparently a bunch of the blue Roaches were tunneling underground. Main base is now in a little bit of trouble, and I do think that that one will be picked off. At the same time, a big chunk of Roaches and Hydras now moving over towards the fourth base. Rogue has now sent 4 Roaches across 2, and the fourth base that was killed previously will once again be forced to cancel, at the very least, as long as Dark doesn't respond to it. And there we go. The base actually does get killed. At the same time, fourth base now also being picked up here for our player in red, or I guess in favor of the player in red, but still, a couple of those Roaches inside of the main right, they're killing units left and right. And actually, this is such a chaotic game. The level of play here is insane. Another base falls here in the top right-hand corner. Dark's supply count is substantially higher than his opponent still, but he's losing a lot of the economy here as well. Look at these, right? These Roaches, well, not a very menacing army on their own. They're picking up a lot of drones, and while 30 workers were just killed by Dark here as well, they're picking up a lot of workers, and they're also picking up a lot of those reinforcing units too, plus they're really making it hard for the player here in blue to, or for the player here in red, to mine. Look at that. 100 plus worker kills in Zerg vs Zerg is very uncommon. Not something we see whatsoever. Both players microing so many different battles at once. I don't even really know exactly how you control all of this. Apparently though, Dark is still feeling relatively comfortable, and while he will be forced out of that main base of Rogue, I still don't mind the position that he's in. I mean, he's dealt a crippling amount of damage to his opponent once again, effectively knocking the economy back to the Stone Age here. I mean, look at that. We don't really see a whole lot here whatsoever, but at the same time, right, while Dark did deal a lot of damage, he also ended up losing a ton of tech on the other side of the map. Now, while this is all going on, apparently Dark did manage to somehow, some way, tech up towards the Hive. He's actually now once again scrambling for resources to get a new base up. He doesn't have 300 minerals anymore, so I guess he's gonna try and retake this base in just a little bit. Now, with these defensive Lurkers coming up, I do think he's gonna be in a pretty good spot. A couple of Roaches making their way across the map once again, and now also Rogue is gonna transition towards... I guess he's not really transitioning, but he's mostly just scouting with a lot of these overlords. Not really transitioning towards a hive himself yet whatsoever. Actually, as a matter of fact, he lost the lair in the main base. Hasn't remade that one just yet. That does mean that we have to be a little bit thoughtful here of the amount of detection that he has. These Lurkers, they're not these units are not seeing each other. They're kind of dumb. Even though they're sitting both underground, apparently neither of them can actually see each other. No detection here available for Dark, at the very least, not at this base. I guess that Rogue is going to wait with unburrowing those units until a little while later. Now, even putting the units out on the map at a relatively, you know, random angle here, too. Oh, there we go. Oh, my God. How are these players looking at all of these things that are going on? It's so difficult to do that. So very difficult to do. Anyway, so Hive Tech has been acquired by Dark. He's got himself a couple of Vipers. And for those of you curious, yes, Blinding Cloud does work on Lurkers. So it's super critical to try and get those. Obviously, you can abduct Lurkers out of the ground as well. And when you abduct them while they are burrowed, you actually unburrow them effectively as well. Plus, you can pull them into your own Roaches and Hydras to pick them off really easily. I do think they will be scouted right now for the very first time. And there we go. 2 Lurkers, 3 Lurkers will be picked off for practically free. Oh, well, make that 4. Super nicely done right there by Dark, and Dark definitely does have the lead in this game here so far. A lot of the Lurkers were being picked off there for Rogue. Now still though, in Roach versus Roach battles, it's more or less a numbers game. in these kind of games, it can definitely become all about position as well. And speaking of position, I really like the position that Rogue has just established here, effectively cutting off a lot of these reinforcements as well, though. Sometimes StarCraft 2 still is just a numbers game. There's still a ton of roaches left over. Still, they're all grouping up together. Rogue dealing a massive amount of damage here with the lurkers that are coming up right now from the other side of the map. Obviously, we also saw the digging claws upgrade for Dark's lurkers, so they're going to be able to burrow quite a lot more effectively. I think these lurkers are once again, yeah, there we go, ready to be abducted, or I guess they were just trembling away to try to not get abducted. But still, Rogue definitely getting a nice, favorable trade, and once again, he's gonna loop-de-loop around through the gold base into what could potentially be the main in just a little bit, and that's where that Roach Warren is waiting. I didn't like the position that Dark put it in earlier. I guess right now, 20 minutes into the game, he's probably glad that... you know, he's got the majority of his tech in the main base. Anyway, I actually don't mind the Spire switch at all anymore at this point either, right? I mean, we see quite a lot of resources still coming in here for both players, but they've got a similar amount of resources as to what they had at like the 5-minute mark. Now, granted, a lot of games end at the 5-minute mark. The only difference is that right now these players have a massive amount of tech. While Dark was in a game-winning position several times in a row already, and I still don't mind the position that he's in, he is starting to lose a lot here as well. A couple of overseers here still waiting for Rogue. They're actually being sent across the map now. Beautiful target firing there, actually. Look at that. That was a subtle move. We can talk about that in just a little bit. Hold that thought, because apparently Dark is now making a push towards the top right-hand corner, but... you can see all of those drones being pulled off the line. Rogue was actually target firing down all of those lurkers, because if he wouldn't have done that, they would have target fired the drones instead, and then the lurker would have cleaned up everything. 18 workers though still, once again, beautiful abduct there on one of those opposing lurkers. That does mean that Rogue is sort of knocked back into Roach Ravager territory once again, because it's going to be very difficult to make lurkers work against these Vipers. That does, of course, mean that Dark's lurkers are going to be significantly more valuable once again. But here we go. A lot of the boys are waiting to be pulled as well. There we go. They are moving forward right now, although he does decide to back off and wait, I think, for that blinding cloud to disappear as well. The boys, of course, right? They are all desperately mining resources. While the drones usually aren't meant to attack, they can still soak up a lot of the damage. They're gonna be the tank of this party. As there we go, he's gonna move the boys forward, jumping them towards this lurker army, making them soak up a lot of the damage. And while 2 drones there, well, that's actually only 2 drones. Well, 2 drones end up dying there, almost bringing us to a total of 150 there, almost. We're very, very close. This is still definitely a game where Rogue is in it. I love this. Dark has now established a base in the bottom right-hand corner once again. He's got a bunch of idle workers. He doesn't really have a lot of workers here at all anymore, actually. I do think that that advantage is currently going to Rogue. And Rogue, actually, while he was once again in a terrible spot just a couple of minutes ago, somehow, some way, he's managed to secure himself one of these bases once again. He's once again going for the one in the top right-hand corner, too. Now, going after the hive here. Couple of roaches and hydras trying their very best to bait those roaches towards the lurkers as well. Dark trying to see if he can maybe deal a little bit of damage into that little pocket over here too. But I think that somehow, some way, Rogue has managed to claw himself back into the game. What a sick match. I think this is a perfect example as to why I personally am not particularly great at this map. Just because of the fact that it is so very chaotic. Both of these players microing at like 3 different angles at once. They're really trying to split up their units into so many hotkeys, trying to control as much of this as they can. I mean, Dark, he's hunting down these roaches with the mutas, but he's also killing overlords. Apparently, going for overlords is gonna be value at this point in the game. Rogue, though, has decided to not go for all of the roaches inside of that main base, but instead, he's got a small group of roaches now also waiting to potentially kill another base once again. Now, keep in mind, actually... oh, there is still one overseer. I was gonna say, there's still no lair here for our player in blue. I didn't see him get one on the production tab. So, this is actually the last of the overseers. Wait, no, that's an overseer from Dark. Well, never mind. Either way, this is still gonna be very, very difficult to play. Yeah, that's actually the last of the overseers. That means that all of a sudden these lurkers can provide a lot of value. Still though, there's no denying that there is a substantial amount of economy in the advantage right now for Rogue. He's trying to see if he can kill the base in the bottom right-hand corner, or at the very least prevent mining there. The lurker will be target fired down there. Beautifully done by our player in blue. The couple of roaches that were harassing previously apparently now have tunneled their way back towards the rest of the army as well. They're now going after the base here in the bottom right-hand corner. A couple of Hydras now zoning away against the Muta switch here as well. Or I guess it's literally just a singular Muta. It was dealing quite a bit of damage though, and apparently right now it's being sent over towards the top right-hand corner. There's no defense for that unit here whatsoever. Still, no detection though available here for Rogue. He's gonna go after as many of those units as he can. He's gonna have a very hard time though. These lurkers are going to town. The lurkers are going to town, but apparently it doesn't matter. Rogue still decides to jump on top of that hatchery. At the same time, he's also going to once again try to kill that Roach Warren for his opponent. That is the second Roach Warren that ends up going down. I think the Muta was actually killed on the way towards the top right-hand corner. And Dark, at this point, doesn't know about the fact that a base is mining over there. He probably realizes it though, upon seeing that a lot of these roaches decided to jump on the opportunity. Dark, while being 4 bases to 2 bases ahead on his opponent earlier into this game, I think at 2 separate moments, he is now at... Oh man, this is the last of his units. I mean, he really cannot macro his way out of this anymore. I mean, he may as well send these drones back into the main base because there's a couple of mineral patches left over there. Instead, Dark is going to focus on this, but he will soon realize that there is now a mining base. And look at the amount of units available. Detection or no detection, indeed. Rogue's army is a little bit too big, and Dark manages to GG out of the game after playing absolutely wonderfully. Well, I think this is a great example as to what is possible on this map. This map can become so very messy, but if you play it well, there are so many cool strategies that are viable. I'm really excited to see where this map is gonna go in, say, like 2 months from now. I mean, kind of like Battle on the Boardwalks, people started playing for the gold bases really greedily on that map initially too. And then after a while, they realized that it wasn't really the best way to go. I can imagine if the Spinecrawler rush, and I say this, you know, as a serious comment, I can imagine that the Spinecrawler rush is actually gotta become pretty legit. If you see your opponent going for the gold first, you may very well be able to deny their economy for a very long time as well. But, oh man... It's going to be interesting to see how it's going to go. Because if players decide to once again go for the blue mineral patches, right? Sometimes we see players cycling back towards the gold a couple of months into it. And there's these weird, like, map-related metas and strategies that are only viable on certain maps. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile or write a special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much for supporting the channel directly. But I'll see you all in the next one.